Test, test. Yes.
Okay.
Historic Preservation Commission, September 18th, 2023. It is now 6:02. In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member believes the meeting is being held in violation of that act, they should state so at this time. Pledge of allegiance, please. Roll call. It's not on the agenda. Oh, hello, Pip. Roll call.
Mr. Copeland?
Here.
Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Cogswell?
Here.
Ms. Campbell? Mr. Testa?
Here.
Mr. Becker?
Here.
Thank you.
Resolutions. Oh, I'm sorry. I put the arrow in the wrong place. The minutes.
It's your first day.
You would think so.
Don't be nervous.
Minutes, August 21st, 2023, and September 1st, 2023. You've had a chance to review those. Do I have a motion to accept those?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cogswell, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell? Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolutions, Inacone, I don't know, Inacone, 1045 Washington Street, Block 1112, Lot 10, Resolution 2023-33. Consul Castleton, 213 Perry Street, Block 1038, Lot 7, Resolution 2023-34. DeLuca, 1515 Beach Avenue, Block 1174, Lot 22, Resolution 2023-35. And HBC approval of application to the National Trust for recognition of the African-American contribution to the City of Cape May's National Historic Landmark status, Resolution 2023-36. Do I have a motion to accept those resolutions?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes, with all except with respect to DeLuca, on which I abstain.
Thank you. Mr. Becker?
Yes, all except for 1045 Washington Street, for which I abstain.
Thank you.
Applications approved or denied in review. We have an adjustment on that. If you go two-thirds of the way down, Magnus, 801 Queen Street, 1093/18. That's just for a curb cut. This should be taken out of this evening's applications. With regards to the remaining applications, do I have a motion to accept those?
So moved.
I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Becker, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
A yes with respect to all except 19 Jackson Street, Inc., with which I abstain from.
Thank you. Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question about the Macedonian Baptist Church being denied for a lift, stairs, landing, ramp, and railings? Is this something that they're going to go back and rethink?
Yeah, this was done in review, and they were present, and yes, they're coming back.
Okay.
There was some input,
Yeah, okay.
so it's something that is appropriate. It's just some detail.
Yeah. And I guess this is something they need for ADA too.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. This is the shortest agenda that I think I've seen in 17 years of doing this. New business, City of Cape May, 611 Lafayette Street, 1060/4.02. This is a contributing sign.
And let me just review the ground rule because it's a city application. This is not here for approval or denial. This is here for review and comment.
Thank you. Paul Dietrich, I am the new city engineer, so I think I have met most of everybody, so thank you. Yeah, the city is looking at replacing the existing sign, the ID sign at the transportation center. It's kind of like on an angle, two-sided, or actually single-sided, but kind of comes out at an angle. And we're looking to improve the look of the sign and increase the height slightly to kind of block, I'll say, and kind of hide some of the appurtenances that are back in the parking lot, as well as the parking lot itself that's kind of behind it. I did bring some extra color copies because I noticed when everything got copied as far as the signs, I don't know if they got colored, and my copy was in black and white, so I did make some color copies for everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, well, take mine. The secretary needs an official copy. Thank you.
The picture that I just distributed has two pictures. One is kind of a closer-up picture than what was in your packet of the existing sign. And then also, not the sign, but just kind of a, since we're changing, I'll say, the style of the sign, where this existing sign is kind of a flat board sign where it's kind of, the lettering is painted. The new sign will kind of be a relieved sign, which kind of matches, I'll say, the signs that are proposed in the new standards that were just developed.
We normally go around the room. I don't think that's necessary for this. I would just ask one question. Is there a reason for not using this format and maintaining this as opposed to?
The reason why we're just trying to create that more larger roof, we're anticipating installing some electrical vehicle charging in there. So this will also help, I'll say, block the transformer that has to be set for the location. The actual pedestals, you won't really see because they'll be kind of hugged up almost to the building along East Bay, the restaurant. So in profile, you're only going to see 18 inches, but if you look at the plan, the site drawings, it has a landscaping plan around the proposed sign. So it's really meant to, I'll say, block just not only the electrical appurtenances, but also the parking itself from the street. So that way, when you go by, you'll really see the sign and the landscaping as opposed to looking back and seeing that row of parking.
So
This sign is perpendicular to Lafayette Street?
The proposed sign will be perpendicular. The existing sign, the planter is generally perpendicular, but I'll say the sign is set on an angle.
So we have one sign with a face facing Lafayette Street.
Right.
And it's with the dimensions that you show here on this
Yes.
unnamed sheet, or unnamed
Yes.
sheet,
So-
unless I've missed it. So it has those dimensions.
Correct.
And it's
And it'll-
considerably more elaborate than the...
More elaborate and also actually less sign area. So when you look at the existing sign, it's essentially two signs if you stand out. Like if you stand across the street, if you're in the Acme parking lot looking across the street, you essentially see two signs that's much more longer than what the existing sign will be in the future.
And you're here, and the city's seeking an advisory report just on the sign, not on the landscaping or anything else. We're
Well,
just talking
no, the
about
landscaping's included.
because we often approve landscaping as part of a major factor. So this is a report sought for both the sign and the landscaping?
Landscaping, yes.
So I think the sign should say National Landmark. I think it should say Cape May Welcome Center. I think that's fine. But underneath it, I think it should say National Historic Landmark. We should have that on every sign that we can possibly have it on, in my opinion. But I think the sign itself is fine.
I think you may have just made him put a bigger sign together.
No, we can-
Put it like where it says Lafayette Street,
I think he wanted to, you have to designate the street address.
yeah.
And
You could change the wording around a little bit to say, well, by the time people get to this sign, they probably know they're in Cape May. So if Welcome Center was at the top, and then Cape May National Historic Landmark
can-
was like in a line and a half below it, that would give you the proper.
I'm sure we can work on the fonting size and make it spaced appropriately to work on that.
Paul, what's the lighting plan for this as compared to what lighting we have on the existing sign?
Because it'll have a little roof over top
Well, I
of
was
it.
just thinking, there's some
That's-
spots that come
No,
on this?
it's going to have a little roof over top, and so in the soffit over that, it's going to have some LED light, just some small downlight.
Uh-huh. Okay.
in that.
So they're in conformance with the new lighting
Yes,
ordinance. That's good.
yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we didn't want anything up, we didn't want any uplighting for sure.
The bushes that you're planting on either side, is that going to be a constant pruning problem to keep them from not blocking the wordage on the sign?
No, the materials that are in front of the sign are low, will stay low and won't get
Okay.
up over the
So
sign.
just anything that might get a little bit tall is at the end.
Will be on the sides, which that will go to help buffer and soften the parking lot.
Well, the only thing I would say, Corbin, are you going to tell them how to do a proper standing seam tin roof?
No, I'll let you do that.
No, you're the pro.
I mean, we see the pitch. I mean, incidentally, when we usually look at a complete application for a certificate of appropriateness, we usually get a material sheet. So I didn't see one in this application, so I'm just going on the materials I see listed on the sheet, on the drawing, right? Have I missed a materials sheet?
I know we'd worked on one, and we had one at the air committee, and I think when we went from the air committee to here, I think it just didn't get
I
copied.
mean, normally we would just,
Yep.
you'd look at
Yeah,
that sheet and
gee.
you'd say, it's wood here and it's less here. And so I'm just looking here at your drawing, and I'm assuming you're just, you're representing that what I see on the drawing
Yes.
is what the sign's going to be built with.
Correct.
Okay, good. Good.
Paul, what Tom was referring to is that we usually require a standing seam of no more than 1 inch high, the seam, which is in conformity with which was traditional here in Cape May.
That's fine.
Without a cap at the top, and also the end comes down to a 45-degree folded over angle right before it goes into the gutter area around it. And I think you've been to a lot of our sessions. You've probably heard some discussions about standing seam tin rooms and how we like to do it, and to keep them historic. And we'll be happy to help.
I'm pretty sure the contractor we have lined up
Well, I mean, John
is
is
familiar to
giving,
working in Cape May.
But
and-
may not be familiar with
Yeah.
the most recent information, and it's available online.
Yeah.
So on our website, you can click on, and it'll explain to the contractor exactly how the ends are to be folded.
Not a problem.
So I only have one comment. Looks fine. My only concern is, I'll follow up on Tom, is the lighting, because the soffit looks like there's not a dimension there, but I scale it at 5'10" to 6 feet above grade. So eye height in a car is roughly 4'2" to 4'8", and typical standing eye height is somewhere between 5'2" and 5'6". I'm concerned that unless that light is somehow screened or directed right at the sign, that'll be a really hot spot of illumination. So I'm strongly recommending that the lighting be done in a way that we don't see the actual light source.
Agree.
Okay. And of course, that the degrees Kelvin would be below 2,500, at most 3,000, right?
Yes, it'll be, yeah, the color and lumens will all be in conformance.
Great. Thanks.
Sorry, I have to borrow this. One quick question. I'm assuming, Mr. Chairman, that this came to the full board because it was a letter from the whole commission. I just want to make sure that, because this would typically be something that would be done in review. But because it's a city, you wanted the whole board's input?
Yeah, there were two reasons. One is what Bob had touched on, is it really has to come before the full board.
Yep.
The other, though, is just for future reference. Signs that are so conspicuous, Lafayette or Washington Street or anything like that, I think should come before the full commission rather than approve and review. So there were two reasons.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay?
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
We have to, yeah. Can we take a quick break for a minute?
Okay. We can take a break.
I have a curveball to throw to Paul.
And you are?
Apologize. I wasn't even going to come, but
You're not going to give testimony, are
You
you?
brought in
No.
a pinch hitter.
I apologize. The sign is very similar to what this actual physical sign itself is very similar to what you see on the page, but it specifically does say National Historic Landmark. And I have a copy of that Judy's printing right now, and I don't want to hold anything else up, but I just wanted to make sure you see exactly what it is, because it's similar but not exactly the same. The landscaping and the sign covering, posts and roof, metal standing seam roof is all the same. The signage did get updated with National Historic Landmarks. So I just wanted to make sure that you have that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
So are we not back from our break? Waiting? We're still on break. Wait.
While we're on break, if you want, I could just give you a little update on a couple projects that you're going to be forthcoming in the future couple months. We're going to be looking at coming back to the board for the steeple portion of the AME Church. We have that being designed and worked on based on the prior work, not the addition or anything like that. It's just a steeple.
On that, I have some file detail on the specs on the bell tower that I
If you'd
share with you.
If you'd share that with me, that'd be great, so that we can make sure to incorporate those in the design. I know that the the engineer and architect are working on it, I think have some of that information, but I'd rather get what you have is up to date so that we incorporate what you're looking for.
What you'll see is, I'll make a copy for you, but what you'll see was done by an architect, an engineer, and me, and we worked independently to get the proportion from an old photograph of the church.
Sure.
And the three of us came within less than a foot from the bottom to the top, and then the pieces in between. So I'm pretty confident that it reflects the church, and it might be helpful.
I will, if you get it over to me, I'll make sure that that's reviewed prior to being submitted to the board, for sure.
Are you trying to do exact replica of what was there, or just something that would reflect an appropriate appropriate bell tower at the top?
I think we're trying to reconstruct the tower as best as we can replicate the tower as to what we know.
The plan that I have is replicates, and as I said, it's based on a number of historic photographs of the church. And as I said, each of us proportioned it out using measurements that were still available, for example, the base of the window. So I think it's pretty accurate.
I think the only thing that might be changing is, I'll say, the stairs and the landing right out front of the stairs. For code perspective, we may have to change some of the dimension on the steps in the landing, just to meet code. But other than that, the steeple itself, bell tower will be replicated.
So the stairs up to the steeple are not for any kind of public use, it's just access to
No, he's
get over
talking
there.
about the
I think
The front steps.
The facade, the
Front steps.
steeple's not going to,
Yeah, to get into the building, yeah.
Sides on
No
the
access,
ladder.
Yeah, not talking about up the,
yeah. A ladder? Okay,
yeah, or something else.
like the fire control tower.
But you're bringing this before the HPC at some point, right? Is that what you said?
that's why I was just letting you know that
Just
that's,
a heads up of what's
we
coming.
have a consultant, architect and engineer working on the plans right now, and, hopefully before the end of the year, we'll be able to make a presentation to the board, just so that you know it's coming.
Okay,
I figured I'd just mention that while we're,
If we ever get back in
the time.
session where I can make a motion, I'll make a motion, but secretaries, you have to have a motion to issue a favorable advisory report. That's what we're doing.
This, yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Oh, all right.
But we're just kind of killing time till we're waiting for
Paul?
well, the mayor,
Question.
Mayor Judy,
Wait a minute, we got everybody talking.
Wait,
We have everybody talking at once here.
go ahead, Corbin.
Are you aware that the gas company has lined all the gas pipes down Pittsburgh Avenue?
I heard that this evening. I don't know what the project is for, but
Thank you.
thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we provide a positive advisory letter for this project.
And is the sign the top one or the bottom one?
That was actually a question that we would be happy to entertain either one from HPC.
well, before you arrived, I mentioned that everybody knows they're in Cape May by the time they get there.
Right.
So I was suggesting that we have Welcome Center in
Bigger.
good-sized letters to catch attention to the purpose of the building, and then have Cape May National Historic Landmark, one behind it. And I certainly don't object to having the lighthouse.
I'm willing to let the city choose the exact language that it wants to choose, with or without Lighthouse.
But don't
Seems
forget-
to me either of these are appropriate.
The Welcome Center is more the location of the building and the Welcome Center, not Welcome to Cape May.
Yeah. Think,
So I think it's an identification of the location,
Cape May.
yeah.
not, yeah.
There's been a motion made. I'd second that motion, but I would ask that when we approve it for the advisory opinion that we're going to issue, that the features of the discussions that we've had, for example, John's point on the lighting, the dimensions of the standing seam, that those be included in the letter, essentially as if they were conditions to one of our approvals.
Yeah.
So I'll second the motion.
And are we going to recommend a sign, or are we going to just,
I like the bottom
I've
with the
With
light.
the lighthouse.
okay.
Lighthouse? Okay.
So we'll
And the
amend,
seagulls.
And that the commission's report the commission's report include the signage verbiage.
right? So,
Are we good?
Are we required to go back to?
So motion by Mr. Copeland, seconded by Mr. Testa, to include the lighting, the standing seam, and you prefer option number 2 of the handout. Correct? Yes?
That sounds correct to me.
yes,
Okay.
thank
Mr.
you.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes,
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes,
Ms. Campbell?
Yes,
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just on the lighting, because I missed that, what is the HPC looking for?
The fixture has to be recessed sufficiently up inside of the soffit so that it's not visible from the ground.
Okay.
Right.
And we do intend to do like a 2700 Kelvin, a more amber than white. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't believe we got the national.
Pick the sign. You got to pick the sign.
Like it.
You wouldn't have let him out of it. You wouldn't have let him out of it.
We'll deal with this tomorrow. Next order of business is old business. This is Conrad, 347 Congress Street. This is a contributing property as a front porch. Yes. Did you want to have another chair? We're generous with chairs.
Yeah, also with microphones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, everyone. Andrew Catanese here, along with the Conrads and the project, our project architect, Paul Kiss. You'll recall this application requests approval to expand the scope of work at the Conrads property at 347 Congress Street. The additional work consisting of replacement of the front porch floor joists and front porch roof rafters. All other work consistent with approvals granted in 2022. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Kiss. He'll go over the plans that have been revised per your request at last month's meeting.
So what we've done is to create a series of consecutive drawings. It will be in your packet. And I could just walk you through what we're trying to show on these drawings. So the first page, labeled SP1, is just the site plan with all the other information, extraneous information off of it, and just the front porch highlighted. And then this is what was on the original approval. Second drawing is the existing conditions before the renovation started. It shows the porch, it shows the aluminum screening, it shows a wrought iron and brick step that had been added at some point in time. The railing was a vinyl railing. And we added to this drawing the foundation plan, which was a CMU block wall with parging on the outside and a door at the one end and a couple of window panels. So the elevations and the floor plan are the same as what was on the previous submission. We just added the foundation plan to show what the foundation was before the house was moved. The third page, called A2, is what was on the original presentation, showing wood columns and wood railing to replace what was there, a new gutter system, half-round gutters, round downspouts, similar to what was remaining of what was on the porch, because most of it had fallen off. And then brick piers with tongue and groove infill around the foundation. Again, we added a foundation plan to clarify what we were proposing on the original submission, which shows the brick piers as elements that are out a couple inches from the face of the wall and the infill panels. So it gives the look of individual piers with the tongue and groove infill. Then the next sheet, called A3, is what we're proposing now, with additional dimensions in between the piers and on the floor plan showing the dimensions of all of these elements around. The drawings themselves are the same as on A2, except we took the landscaping off so you could see more clearly the building. On page A4 is a series of three sections through the porch, building sections through the porch. All the way to the left is what was there when we started. So it shows the joists on the bottom, it shows the foundation wall, wood decking, square columns, the white painted ceiling, and the metal roof on the rafters with the half-round gutter. The next drawing in the middle is what we took to be approved. It wasn't included on the original submission, but it shows the new standing seam roof, the new mahogany tongue and groove ceiling, the new 10-inch square column to replace the deteriorated columns, new tongue and groove decking, the existing deck joists, and the new foundation wall. It also shows dimensionally on the foundation, the brick pier, which would be projecting out. And the proposed section, the only difference is it would be new rafters and new floor joists. And then the final drawing is a series of photographs of the porch pre-renovation. So it shows the foundation underneath, pictures of the porch from inside and outside, the rafter detail and gutter detail. That picture is from the main house. We didn't have a picture close-up of the porch, so we used the one from the main house, but it's all the same detail. And
I'm sorry.
that's it.
Where are the stairs, the steps?
The stairs we removed. The stairs were,
So you're not having any steps?
no. So the steps were kind of I don't know, maybe put on in the 50s, it looked like, with brick that sort of curved out and had the wrought iron railing, not in my mind appropriate to the house.
And so where is the primary entrance to the house?
Primary entrance is on the addition in the back.
Right back here.
Yeah, that was a rhetorical question. Normally you have a front entrance. The idea of this was to replicate what was there. We don't want to revisit all the problems with this job. For me, this doesn't replicate what was there. If you look at the picture here, and you look at this, they're two very separate and distinct issues. And under the circumstance, since this contributing property is now no longer contributing, I thought we left the meeting last time that you would at least replicate the porch. I don't see that. But at any rate, we'll go around the room. Jim, you want to start?
Well, I'm having some difficulties here in comparing the two since the stairway was taken out.
Would you talk into the mic?
I'm sorry, usually talk, but I'm having some difficulties in seeing the replication since the stairway was taken out, but the stairway was an add-on to begin with. So I see what I see is attractive, but it doesn't closely resemble what we had before. And I really can't be any more specific than that. I'm still looking at it, so I can pass. I'll make remarks otherwise if I see anything else.
Thank you. Pip?
I don't know, I'm so confused by this whole thing. I mean, this house would have originally had steps. It probably did not originally have concrete steps with a, with a railing. And actually, I don't know, in what you originally submitted, it didn't have steps, did it?
No.
Way back, a
Right,
year ago.
correct.
Yeah,
Yes, it did
didn't have
not.
steps, right.
It did not.
Because I remember the discussion about changing the door to be the middle of the house or the end of the house, whatever you want to say. So, so I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't really bother me that there's not going to be any steps. And I know you guys are, I mean, I know you're trying to represent this as if there's only two things that are being replaced, the floor joists that are different from the original application, namely the joists and the ceiling. And I suppose literally that's true. But I mean, to me, this property is so different than what it was in the beginning. And it is definitely different, and maybe it's because I didn't pay enough attention or I didn't read the plans well enough or whatever, but it's definitely different than what I imagined. I mean, I never imagined that all the siding was going to be taken off and all of that kind of stuff. That just never entered my mind. I thought it was going to have an addition on the back of it. But basically, it's not a whole new house, but it's almost like a whole new house. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't bother me that it doesn't have steps, because there's so many other issues that it could not have steps.
Is this property still classified as contributing?
What?
Is this property still classified as contributing?
Well, it hasn't been re-rated, but it won't be contributing.
Yeah, so that's a foregone conclusion, I think, based on
That's why I
everything
think
else.
it doesn't matter whether it has steps, it's not going to be contributing anyway.
Yeah.
So that's not much of a bottom line. I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but I guess what I'm trying to say is the steps don't matter to me.
Tom?
Well, I don't think we can ever bring this back to contributing with all the things that have changed. So I would try to, my thoughts are to try to make the front of this house come back to the type of look and materials that would have been used. And the screened-in porch, the vinyl railings, the direction of the staircase and everything did not ever go along with that house originally. So I think actually it doesn't bother me that you don't have steps coming down, because you almost don't have a front yard at all. And, that can be a nice landscaping area out there that will warm up the house, and there's plenty of room for that. I would just like to make sure that the elements that you're using in the front are as historically accurate as possible. You've heard us talk about the design of metal roofs and how to do them absolutely perfectly. If you've been into our other lectures before, when we do porch railings, we want them to have the weight that go along with the heaviness of the house, which means the railings aren't 1 inch with 4 inches between. They're more like 1 3/4 inches with 3 inches in between, with a nice strong railing at the top. And I think one of the things I would suggest changing here, this is actually storage space underneath. If you, rather than doing the wood there, had a dark painted plywood behind it, and then did a light color like this privacy lattice in front of that, you would get that sense that that is the area under the porch. And that would really work very well, and still give you a nice tight area under it. It's up in the air now, so there's an awful lot to see there. And you know what I mean by privacy lattice? That's the lattice that only 25% of it is what you see through, and the rest is wood. And with that, with a nice stain on it, in whatever lighter color you would want that goes along with the house, would really help that whole front porch come together. Those are just the elements I would love to see tied into this.
So are the railings, in terms of the railings being spaced the way, you know, the way you would want them to be spaced, is that the way they are on the drawings?
I didn't see exact measurements on the railing system.
They're not exact measurements on the railing, but we absolutely would use 1 3/4 balusters, square balusters, and happy to space them
Okay.
3 inches or whatever works out when you lay out the railings and have a substantial,
I
Top
would
rail.
recommend to the rest of us that there's some details like that we would still like to have drawings that show all those dimensions that are going to go into this, so that there's no, discussion down the line on what did we really approve.
Would that be okay in review?
Yeah, we could do that.
For those details?
Yeah. I mean, we'll put it in the motion, if others agree with me. We'll put that in the motion, and then,
Can I interrupt,
Sure.
Tom? Because I think there's going to be some other additions to this
okay.
conversation, and
I wasn't closing it.
I think it's a bit much to look at in review under the circumstance.
Okay.
I would recommend you come back.
Okay,
But go ahead.
okay. Actually, no, those are my points.
Thank you. Corbin,
I agree with Tom.
any comments, Lorraine?
Just one, because there's no stairs, I was looking at the dimensions of the existing before it was removed, or it fell off, and then the proposed, or what's existing now, those dimensions have not changed, am I correct?
correct.
Okay, just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
John?
So I just have 2 questions. What is the lighting that you're going to be using in the porch?
I don't recall.
Lighting,
Do you recall?
the lighting,
Lighting in the ceiling of the
there's
porch?
three, right?
Yeah.
In the ceiling, what do we call them? Lighting.
Are they fixtures that are hanging or down lights and recessed? And
I had
recessed ceiling lights?
Okay, so at our last meeting, we discussed that this is a new submission, so we would need to see what the lighting fixtures are that you're proposing, because that would be normally part of what we would expect to see. And in that vein, I think it would be really helpful if your drawings were, as the application states that they should be, construction plans and drawings, so that on the elevations, it actually shows us the materials. Thank you for giving us A4, because I was very confused until I saw A4. I didn't know what material was what without having to look at the material sheet. So the drawings that get approved should in fact have all the materials on them, so that our field representative can verify from the drawings what's actually being constructed. The only other question I have, and you've heard it earlier tonight, is the height of the seam in the standing seam metal roof, because there's not a cut sheet for that.
And, yeah, and I heard 1 inch.
1 inch, yeah.
See, so the way this works is you did a good job on the materials sheet, but then accompanying the materials sheet is the cut sheets that illustrate the specific product that you're talking about. So, A on the materials sheet, but no examples.
My o-
I haven't had a chance to read through all the new guidelines. Is this information about the metal roofing in the new guidelines?
It is, yes, and in the new standards, there's a touch where you can go and see a video of how we want to see the standing seam work done.
So if you're looking at it online, there's a link?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
so you have to hit the link.
One more comment. My only other comment is about the stairs. We already approved this once without the stairs, so I see no reason why we would renege on that.
I would take exception to that. The reason being is this started out as a contributing bungalow. And I'm not aware of any contributing bungalows in Cape May that don't have front stairs to a porch. It's clear that on your original, that the brick and the wrought iron was not original, but for sure, there were steps in the original building. From a historic perspective or streetscape perspective, I just can't imagine this looking correct without steps. It simply doesn't make any sense to me.
It sort of transforms what at least started off looking as the main entrance, and you've shifted the focus over to the addition so that you can get in the place of the addition. And this kind of looks like the addition because it doesn't have a stairway. But I want to just go back to something John said, and that is, I'm not sure where my head was when we first reviewed this. Maybe I said something about stairs before, but on the face of this application, the materials changes certainly don't give me a problem, and I would not approve this because it lacks the stairway, but it just looks wrong. And the reason I would not object to it in a way that I would vote against it is that I don't believe we have a contributing property here, and I don't believe we're going to bring one back, and I don't think we're going to get it close to B1. So I'm just more willing to go along with that. That may be a seat of the pants logic, but
Well, the agreement we had before was that they were going to come back and replicate the porch.
I'm sorry, I must have missed that one.
I'm not sure I'm following that. Our understanding was that you needed more detail on the plans, but of course, we were expecting to come back with everything, again, approved per whatever it was, 15 months ago. But we understand your comments. I want to make sure that our list of to-dos and the items that you want to see the detail on is clear, and I don't want to cut you guys off if you'd like to comment.
Before you do that, I want to comment on the lighting. There's a whole section on lighting in the standards, but hi-hats on this porch would not be appropriate for me.
Yeah, since we're coming back, I was going to take the opportunity to review the lighting, and maybe sconces would be more appropriate, or decorative ceiling fixtures.
Yeah, there's a number of things that may work, but hi-hats are not appropriate.
Yeah.
May I say that if it's no longer contributing, I mean, we've been doing everything to keep this house contributing, and I thought we did. And
No, you didn't.
now-
I don't want to get into that conversation.
No.
No, you didn't. You didn't do any of it. The issue is, right now, this house is contributing. That's the way it is ranked. And so the next time it's done, it will likely be non-contributing, but right now it's contributing. And so that discussion is not helpful. You have built a new house. We went over that last time. I wanted to avoid it this time, but it's simply not appropriate what you've done. And now we're trying to work with you on the front porch. So
So we're going to bring details and cut sheets for number one, the 1 3/4 inch balusters and the rails in general, with a little more detail.
and the spacing on
And the
the
spacing, yep.
balusters.
Number two, the 1-inch standing seam roof and roof detail. Number three, the lighting plan, avoiding high hats with the detail that goes with that. Is there anything else that I've missed?
Yeah, the cut sheets of the lighting fixtures.
Yeah, we'll give you details and cut sheets on those three items.
I mean, it seems to me that among some of us, the existence of a front porch is still up for debate. I mean, I don't think we're agreed on whether you should be returning with plans for a front porch. That to me is still up, at least based on the discussion.
I'm sorry.
There seem to be questions here about whether or not you should be coming back to us with a front porch that has steps designed into it. I'm sorry, I said front porch. It is a front porch. I mean, steps to the front porch.
Thank you.
See, to me, Andrew, what happens is this became a side porch to me, without steps and without entrance for the house.
Can I point out that
Sure.
the reason the steps were moved was from our very first submittal to the second time, one of the comments made was that we should have a connector between the cottage and the addition to differentiate between the two.
Right.
That's when the steps were moved back there. And everyone on this board, even members that weren't here, approved the prior plans as they were. Now I'm coming back and we're hearing things about the steps. The steps should not be an issue here. The steps were
I'm in
were
agreement.
approved
I'm-
to move.
I am in
Wait a minute,
agreement.
we're not going to argue about that in public. Whether the steps are appropriate or not is not up to you to decide, it's to the
You
HPC.
already did decide.
Yeah, we did.
This is a new
Approved it.
submission.
You approved the drawing.
This
We approved no steps.
is a new submission.
But we're not submitting for the whole house. That connector is an entryway for us to get into the house when it was redesigned. So that's why the steps were put there. That's our foyer to get into the house.
That's where-
Can I ask,
Bedrooms.
can I ask
I don't want
council to
steps.
step in, please? And tell us whether, can I ask council to step in and advise us whether we're stopped to talk about and decide on steps based on the original approval? Because if we are, then I don't want to waste time asking them to talk about steps again. Bob, can you help us out?
Say again?
He's looking for you to help us out. I don't,
Here,
Oh, well, I'll try again. I don't want to try and bring up the matter of steps added to this front porch if our original approvals bind us to that concept. Are we stopped to consider that
well,
as an item?
I understand it was originally approved, but this is a new application because it's a new porch. It wasn't what
All right.
was there before. So I would view it as a new application. I would include the present condition as part of the, noted in the motion, and then it's a vote. See where the majority is.
I'd like to point out that if we ask them or tell them they have to put the steps back, it would be a very incorrect stair entry that never would have existed in history. So if they then have to have the steps come out further, they're going to go to the zoning board, hopefully with our approval, to, add into the front yard. I think this is almost like you want to punish them for doing some other things and taking it out on the steps. I don't think we should require steps in the front.
Yeah,
For the reasons I stated.
I don't view it all as a punishment. I view it as you're reviewing the application that's in front of you now.
Yes.
And if you believe that the steps as might be proposed because they'll match the old ones, but you think that's not appropriate on this, then that's how you review it. But it's clearly a new this is not the old application.
I
Whether the
do
new one
understand that.
should have steps or not, that's your call.
But I still would not want those steps to go back the way they were, because that would be against any other bungalow house we're seeing in town with a front entrance on it.
I'm confused. I think there's something of
By
a,
the house, You'll see that there's already a garden wall constructed.
Garden wall there already.
Yeah,
I mean,
Brick
we've already
facing,
started the
blue
construction.
stone top.
that's only a
Complete.
10-foot front yard.
And there's, the other component of that is, as you indicated, putting them the way they were wouldn't be appropriate because they were, as Mr. Kiss stated, an add-on, and given the new height requirements of the city to run them forward, they would not meet the setback requirements. And so we run into all these problems as a result of it, and I respectfully don't agree with Mr. Feinberg.
Wouldn't be the first time.
It won't be the last, it's okay, but we have great respect for one another. Well, I have great respect for Mr. Feinberg, but I think the prior approvals are important. It's such what we're expanding is so limited. And I did take time to look at the local design standards and the Secretary of Interior design standards on how this slight expansion of the project alters the project. And we've heard your comments. We know the concern with things that occurred besides this, but this component is just so narrow in scope. We really would love to obtain those approvals subject to just those three items. I believe these are the types of things that would be appropriate, and I've seen the commission call for follow-up and review, and I would ask that the commission and the members consider approving tonight, subject to railing, roof, and lighting subsequently being approved in review.
And lattice space.
And the lattice space.
I was going to bring, and I'm sorry, I didn't get your name, your first name. You're Mrs. Conrad, I know, but you're, D. Conrad. Thank you very much.
Well, there's definitely disagreement here. So in order to see if we're on one track or another, I will make a motion that we approve for these elements to be added and returned to the full board for a final approval. And they include, just as Anthony said, it's the lighting. We were looking at sconces rather than the overhead lighting. We want the details on the roof. We want the details on the railing. We want the lattice work at the base, and would even help to, show off a little bit of the landscaping that's going to help the house come down towards the ground. It looks, in this one drawing, looks pretty darn good. So my motion would be that we have a conceptual approval on those items that will be well-defined in plans for the whole board to take a look at. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Yeah, with
Conceptual
all
approval.
those stated conditions.
Okay. So,
And
okay.
it's coming back to a full hearing.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Carroll, seconded by Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Copeland?
No.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Cogswell?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll return.
Any other questions about that?
I don't think so. I think we have I think we were clear on the 4 points that you want addressed. I think they're part of the record, and you'll see us next month with those details, cut sheets, and we'll get to it. Thank you for your time.
And we wish you all the best with your house.
Thank you. One question that I do have, do we have to wait for those approvals before we can start framing?
Technically, yes. That doesn't mean that everybody follows that rule.
Oh,
but
come on,
I would-
Tom.
I
Tom.
would say,
Commissioner,
Well, I mean, we want to put the roof on.
the answer is yes, you're supposed to wait.
Okay.
That's the answer. Yes, you're supposed to wait. And we're supposed to move things along as expeditiously as we can.
Very good. Just wanted clarification.
Thank you all for your time.
Just to make it clear, anything that you would want to do from the house that requires a building permit needs to have the final certificate of appropriateness from this board. If there are things that you can do that don't require the building permit, you can do those, whatever they may be.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. Have a great night.
Open to the public. No public present, so we'll close the open to the public. Discussion items, are there any discussion items to come before the commission this evening?
I have an interesting one that I'd like to get some opinions on. In our willingness to go out and meet with people to discuss the changes they'd like to do before they put in an application, I ran into an interesting one on Hughes Street, where rather than taking original windows out completely, they would like to take them out and then strip them down, take the original glass out and the glazing that holds it in. These are 6/6 windows, and then put dig further in to make it a two-pane window with the original glass coming back on the outside and then glazing it. Now, I know this has been done because Roger Furlan did it on his house right next to us on Hughes Street, and I hadn't.
So you're talking about double glazing using the old glass on the outside without a vacuum seal?
I guess it was a small vacuum seal between the new glass and the back.
So
they would have
there
to
is a
route
company,
out
there's a company that gives you,
inside trim.
right, assuming you get the sash routed out, there's a company that gives you a vacuum unit using your old glass on the outside
Yep.
and the new glass on the inside.
So I know it's been done, because Roger Furl
Wow.
did that, and I'd be more than willing to call him and say, how did this really work out? And the other thing I'll throw in, that this is a key contributing building that I'm looking at. So before I go any further in advice, I'm wondering, since this is the original window
And it's
going
key.
back in, it's almost like you're putting on a storm window in the back, but it's actually just a piece of glass. And all the ugly storm windows would come down in front of it. That, I think they would certainly improve their insulation. The price of it is staggering.
An
I can't-
interior storm window would be a more appropriate application, so you could maintain the existing windows in a key structure, and the interior storm window would provide similar energy savings.
It seems to me a whole lot to spend for very, very little result. And then you have to worry about looking through the thick glass at angles where, where it just looks like a block of glass.
What do you think, Bill?
Well, I think everybody can have an opinion, but I think we ought to do some research and find out what this is, because if one person does it, although if Roger did it, nobody else followed his example necessarily, right?
I don't know if anybody else has done this.
I
John,
didn't-
have you run into anything
I
like
didn't
this?
understand that Roger did this. What Roger did was put a insulated glass in the existing structure. He didn't use the original glass as one side of the
Oh, we
vacuum.
changed the glass entirely.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and you couldn't imagine I can't imagine a modern manufacturing operation using 100-year-old glass and welding it together with a seal that, I mean, if you do, it's going to be like as is. You'll never get a warranty for that.
It would be extraordinarily expensive. I mean, it can be done, but
Probably not, because you're going to break at least one if you're going to do a bunch of windows.
assuming no breakage.
Anything if you want to pay for it. That's really the bottom
I
line.
doubt it. I doubt you can find anybody to do what Tom described.
Well, he told me what he thought it was going to cost, and I wet my pants.
I mean, really, it would be so much better
I-
to just treat it the way people are treating it, which is
So
to get
do you
yourself a
think
good
Warren's
storm.
advice would really be kind of the best thing to say? Why don't you consider interior storm windows? Take the exterior storm windows, which are really beat to death.
Yeah, but the problem
Get
with,
rid of them.
yeah, but the problem is if you take those exterior storms off and you expose the original wood sash, you're going to give that some really heavy weather.
Yes, yeah.
And that, many of these old things, I mean, I would never expose my sash like that, and that's the reason why they've lasted 120 years. Because you just can't, you just can't do that, no matter how much paint you try to keep on it. So it just, but
If you look at the window section in our book, and you look at the Secretary of Interior, a key building with original windows are to be retained and repaired. So now we want to deviate from the standards that we just read.
Would also suggest, if you're going to have a storm window, it should be a wood storm window with one, sash in the middle that is in line with the break in the windows, and the rest of it is glass.
well, when a lot of manufacturers, including a leading one in Ohio, will produce a custom framed, properly proportioned storm window for the outside, properly coated, and with glass that will low E, so it will protect everything going past it, and they are extremely small in their frame, so that the original window actually shows pretty well through it. You've seen my curved stuff in the dining room and the living room. They're really small, mounted in frames.
And Jim, that's on the outside? That's on the outside of the historic window?
All mine are.
Okay.
All mine are. And John, they provide 100% protection to the original windows, and with those, I'm able to keep them in good shape. And you know, you don't have to go through and pull the sashes out and add extra weather stripping and try to stop the drafts and all those, although we have, to try to keep air infiltration at a minimum. But it's an old house, and the best way to protect it really is on the outside with as little of an obstruction to the view of the original sashes as you can. And you can get some pretty small stuff for the outside. The helpfulness that we provide in talking with people who have prospective projects is, I think, on one hand, useful and helpful, but we need to be careful in talking with those people that we don't give them. I mean, part of the problem is they could then say, well, Tom, you told us that this stuff looked pretty good. And then they come and attempt to basically pigeonhole you for having helped them with a few suggestions. So I just think if we're gonna talk to people, we should be clear that this doesn't represent a view of the HBC.
Well, if they do an inside storm window, that is not anything that's even covered in our book. An exterior storm window
is covered. Yeah, no, but
it doesn't say how thick it should be.
no, I'm talking in general when we help people out.
Send him up to look at your storm window.
We could, yeah, anybody wants to, but
I have the same thing,
And Pip has them too.
from the
Okay.
same company.
Allied Window, yeah, good outfit.
Now, do you take them out in the summer and put screens up?
I have sets of screens, but I don't because we're covered with AC through the whole house. So the original idea of circulating the air isn't really meaningful.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
So you could,
Oh, yeah. I mentioned, excuse me, folks, I mentioned this to Warren before, and this won't take up too much of your time, but finally, the project of redoing the rules and regulations, our bylaws, it's back on my desk again, and over the next couple of months, I'd like to produce an updated draft of those. I would do that, and because I'm not passing myself off as an expert with respect to the municipal land use law, I'm going to do an updated copy. I'm going to send them to Bob, and then hopefully that draft can become passed upon by the commission as a new set of rules and regulations. So we'll have updated our bylaws just like we updated our application forms. It's a resolution to get it done this year instead of last.
Any other comments, discussion points?
One last comment. There's a really good bit on storm windows in the new guidelines. It explains, I think, really, really well. So,
Yeah, good.
Move we adjourn.
Adjourned.
Second, adjourned.
I won't know what to do.
God, we're out of